just don't seem to get an understanding of how dangerous a situation we are in. We are not going to walk out of here. Please help us.
On the brisk morning of December 15, 2014, people are walking through Martin Place, the heart of Sydney's business district. The individual highlighted in red will later be identified as Man Haron Monis. In his possession is a black backpack that holds a sawn-off shotgun wrapped in a blue bag, a paring knife, and a black flag. He walks towards a local cafe, and nothing about this walk towards Lindt Chocolate Cafe signifies nervousness or hesitation. Monis enters Lindt Cafe at 8:30 a.m. He walks and sits at table 36. After 20 minutes, Monis orders tea and a piece of cake. He also wishes to be moved to different seating arrangement at table 40 near the cafe's second entrance. Table 40 is more isolated and provides a view of the entire cafe. Throughout this time, people are entering and leaving the cafe, and it seems as if Monis is waiting for something. More time passes, and now it's 9:40 a.m. Monis tells a staff member that he wants to see the manager. Tori Johnson, the manager of Lindt Cafe, sits opposite of Monis at table 40. As they spoke, witnesses are able to recall Johnson looking stressed and nervous, which according to staff seemed unusual. Johnson calls over Jared Morton Hoffman, a waiter, and instructs him to locate the keys and lock the doors of the cafe. Hoffman has a gut feeling that something is wrong, but follows the orders of his manager. People are now unable to enter or leave the cafe. At the same time, Tori Johnson dials 000 on his mobile phone to contact emergency services. Monis hands over a paper for Tori to read to the operator. Tori calmly reads over the writing and relays it to the operator.
I'm calling from Martin Place.
Right. Can you tell me what street you're on?
Lent,
Sorry?
on the corner of Phillip Street.
Phillip Street?
I need to read a message to you.
So I'm just confirming where you are now.
Yeah, it's Lindt Chocolate Cafe.
Right.
That's where I am.
Okay. Just stay on the line with me, please.
Yeah. Sorry, there's more message I have to read to you as well.
All right. Well, you just need to hang on a second.
I need to finish reading this
Yes,
message.
I understand that. Just hang on a minute.
Sorry, I have a gun in front of me.
Okay.
Yeah. So Australia is under attack by Islamic State. There are 3 bombs in 3 different locations: Martin Place, Circular Quay, and George Street. I want to contact other brothers and ask them not to explode the other 2 bombs, but I can't contact because they don't carry a phone with them. They have radio with them. I can say that through radio ABC.
Mm-hmm.
The plan is to request Tony Abbott to call them or me and to have a debate while it is broadcast live on ABC National Radio. So that is why they have radio, and the best way to contact them is by voice message to announce that they should not explode the bombs. They listen to anything I tell them. The device placed inside the radio is another way of exploding the bombs.
Through this message, Monis's plan is to use the threat of 3 bombs to contact the Prime Minister, Tony Abbott, and for the communications to be broadcast live. During Tori's call, Monis begins the hostage crisis by taking out a shotgun out of a blue bag. People gather outside, attempting to get their morning coffee, but then a woman sees Monis draw his weapon and immediately flees to safety. The woman calls 000 to report what she just saw.
Hello. Sure, the Lindt shop at Martin Place is being held to unload somebody. He had a blue bag and it looked like he had a shotgun in there.
Police begin arriving at the scene after the first few calls. A siege begins to form. Monis has trapped 18 people in the cafe. 12 were members of the public, while the other 6 were staff of the cafe. The Lindt Cafe has 2 entrances. The main entrance that leads to the corner of Phillip Street. The second smaller entrance is connected to a building lobby. There is a third emergency exit, which is situated in the storage room at the back of the cafe. The cafe is located by a cross-section of Martin Place Road and Phillip Street. Monis moves the hostages to the Martin Place side of the cafe. There are 4 windows on each side of the building. These windows in siege communication would be nicknamed white windows for the Martin Place side and green windows for the Phillip Street side. Monis wants these windows blocked, so he places hostages in front of the windows. Hostages were ordered to stand near windows, eyes closed, and hands up. Monis also orders some of the hostages to place a black flag with Arabic inscription and to press it on the glass. This becomes the first indication to the police and media of what type of attack this is. Manas places hostages in these areas for the sole purpose of acting as human shields, and it worked, as tactical operation units were engaged, which also included snipers stationed in the Channel 7 building across the street. The hostages placed near windows forced the snipers to be more cautious. Manas knows that he needs power and control over the hostages to get what he wants. He takes off his hat to reveal a headband with Arabic inscription. He announces to hostages that this is an attack on Australia by Islamic State. This portrays that he's part of a greater force. To guarantee further control, he implements the use of a shotgun and claims that in his backpack is a bomb. But even with all this, it would be proven impossible to monitor and control all 18 hostages. It's now 10 AM, and police presence continue to gather as negotiators are now stationed and certain areas are evacuated. Manas wants to make sure that his position is secured, so he would ask Tori about the emergency fire exit and if it could be opened from the outside. Tori confirms that the exit could only be opened from the inside. Manas reassured that any lies would result in death. Manas' main objective now becomes a live radio debate with the Prime Minister and a delivery of the IS flag. He would appoint hostages to call and state these demands.
We understand the Prime Minister is a very busy man. However, I think the lives of quite a few people here are more important than whatever he's doing right now, whether he's playing golf or walking with his dog.
Basically, the guy just says to me that if you don't have the flag, don't bother calling again. If you don't have the flag, don't call again.
As time passes, Manas has a keen interest in the media coverage of the siege. He monitors what's being said through radio coverage and live news from hostages' mobile phones. Manas is fully aware that the cafe is surrounded by police, and he spots an operation officer pushing forward on the Phillip Street side of the cafe. Manas is irate at the slight glimpse of police, and he demands this message be placed on the window to frighten the police away. The sign reads, "Leave or he will kill us all, please go." Hostage Fiona Ma holds the sign against the window for 2 minutes. Jared Hoffman also caused negotiators to convince the police to move back.
Thank you, police emergency. This is Alison.
I'm currently a hostage in Lynn Munn Place. Can you please tell all police officers to move away immediately?
So you're in the lead building, are you?
Yes, I am right now. He's going to shoot someone right now. Can you please tell them to go away?
Who's he talking to?
He's talking to me right now. He's saying to please go away. Right now, he's not going to shoot the lady in front of me.
At first sight of the sign, the officer complies and moves back up the street, out of sight of Manas. Manas throughout this whole siege is paranoid about an eventual police entry through one of the 3 entrances. At one point, he orders the placement of chairs and tables close to the main entrance to obstruct a possible police entry. He would routinely have hostages stand in a circular formation around him to provide protection as human shields. It's now 3:30 PM, and the hostage crisis has been going on for more than 5 hours. Hostages are becoming more desperate for a resolution, and many are looking for a way to escape. One hostage gambles by planning to go through the main entrance doors. Since the main doors are locked, the only way to open them is through a green button that forces the doors to be open. The issue is the uncertainty that the button would work. If the button fails and Manas catches the hostage, dire consequences would follow. The hostage waits until Manas is at the opposite side of the cafe, before he squeezes between the wall and a store panel. He presses the green button and runs out the main doors, up Phillip Street and towards TOU officers. Another hostage follows, not wanting to be left behind. A cafe staff member sees what's transpired, and believing that this is his only chance of escape, he bolts to the emergency fire exit at the back of the cafe. He successfully reaches TOU officers. 3 hostages had suddenly escaped, and Manas entered damage control mode. He fears that a police entry is occurring. He moves to a more defensible position and has hostages concentrated in this corner of the cafe. Jared Hoffman would play an important role in convincing Manas that the police had no involvement in those 3 escapes. Manas calms down and makes a deal with the remaining hostages. He tells them that anyone else that escapes will be responsible for the death of a hostage. This places a morality chain around every hostage. 1 escape equals 1 hostage for Manas to kill. This is Manas' attempt to gain additional control over the hostages. Manas had a mobile phone prepared for the situation. He gave his phone number to 000 at the beginning of the hostage crisis, and negotiators called this number multiple times throughout the siege. He would leave many of the calls unanswered, but when he does answer, he would hand it off to a hostage. This time, he hands it off to hostage Selena Winpay. She reinstates the current demands to negotiators.
Will he speak to us?
No, he's not speaking to anybody. He wants to speak to Tony Abbott. We have not heard from Tony Abbott. We have been asking him to call us to have a live conversation. He clearly doesn't give a because he hasn't called us since 9:45 this morning. We're sick of talking to the police negotiators. We're sick of talking to, people like yourselves who just don't seem to get an understanding of how dangerous a situation we are in. We are not going to walk out of here. So I hope you get to sleep well at night because we're just not going to, mate. Please help us. Help us to get Tony Abbott to call this gentleman to send the frickin' IS flag and to publish on all media as soon as possible that Australia is under attack by the Islamic State.
The call is being monitored heavily by Monis. In the background are two hostages hiding under table 40. Ever since the chaos of the first hostages escaping, these hostages hid and waited. Monis, for the entirety of the hostage crisis, lingers in this corner of the cafe since it allows for surveillance of the entire cafe, but not the entire cafe, since there is an obvious blind spot. For the most part, table 40 and the lobby cafe entrance are able to go undetected. One of the hostages hiding under table 40 took this opportunity to unlock the lobby doors. At around 5 p.m., both hostages crawl together and make sure not to make any sound. The first hostage busts to the automatic doors and runs down Martin Street towards TOU officers, while the second takes her time to close the door to minimize noise. She escapes the same way as the first. The hostages' effort to keep quiet are rewarded, as Monis is unaware of any escape. Only Jared realizes that the lock was undone. This is a lucky break since Monis had recently given the warning of killing a hostage if people escaped. As the crisis continues, Monis orders hostages to create videos and post them on social media. Monis is hyper-focused on media coverage at this point to see if his demands are being broadcast. He turns on the radio and the whole room hears. 5 hostages have escaped. Monis is confused by what he's hearing. He only knows of the 3 initial escapes, and not the 2 cafe staff members. The hostages' stomach dropped as they knew escaping hostages would mean he'd need to shoot someone. The hostages band together to convince Monis that the media are wrong. Miraculously, they succeeded, and Monis went along with the false media coverage theory. Police up until now are unaware of who the gunman is, but close-up footage of the gunman allows detectives to identify him. Manharan Monis proclaims himself as a peace activist and would be seen protesting in front of the Channel 7 building.
Everything I do for the safety of all nations, including the nation of Australia, the nation of Afghanistan, and the nation of Iraq. All nations, we want peace. We don't want war. We don't want Australia to be unsafe.
His main motivation would be to fight against the war on Islam. He undertook a campaign that sent hate mail to families of dead Australian soldiers that took positions in Afghanistan. Monis also established himself as a criminal. In 2013, his ex-wife would be stabbed 17 times and set on fire. Monis' now girlfriend was the one to commit the murder, and Monis was charged with being accessory to the murder. Monis was not close to the murder. He was framing his alibi to be a day with friends, and the motivation seemed to be to regain custody of his kids. In his video, he intentionally frames his camera towards a community clock to timestamp his alibi.
Your time is not exact because this is 10 minutes to 4.
To build an even stronger alibi, he would hospitalize himself, where now police find him and question him. He attempts to act oblivious and concerned upon hearing the news.
I want to know why you are here.
Man, I'll inform you that your former partner is dead. She was involved in an accident in your unit complex earlier this afternoon.
My ex-partner?
Yes, that's correct.
What do you mean?
I'm afraid she's passed away. She's died earlier this afternoon.
Maybe someone else. Maybe it's someone else.
I'm afraid not.
When? Oh, what has happened?
That's what we're investigating at the moment. We're hoping that you could assist us with some information in regards to any of the aspects that would be surrounding what's happened to her. Please feel free to verdict would be.
His case is reviewed in a local court, and miraculously, he is granted bail. But not too long later, he's arrested again with 43 charges of sexual and aggravated assault against multiple women. And even after all this, the courts allow Manas to leave with bail. Insight into Manas' background plays a crucial role in the decision-making of the hostage crisis. His demands of a live radio debate and a delivery of an Islamic State flag are going unanswered, and as time goes on, Manas gets increasingly irritated and dangerous. The siege enters its 10th hour, and the sun starts to set. As sunlight continues to disappear, Manas instructs Fiona Ma to close the lights of the cafe. He wants to limit the visibility for police to not view inside the cafe. Darkness swallows the cafe, but as more time passes, lights outside the cafe become more obvious. It's December 15, and there are various Christmas lights strung up in Martin Place. Manas is bothered by these Christmas lights and demands a hostage to call for them to be turned off. Selena Winpei becomes the one to make the call to negotiators to turn off the lights. After time had passed and nothing was being done, Manas is extremely disgruntled that none of his demands were being worked on. He wants the lights off and gives Selena a gut-wrenching warning.
Hello Selena, how are you?
I'm going to get shot in 15 minutes if you don't have these lights switched off. You don't know how close I just came. Could you please have these lights switched off? I have 15 minutes.
Selena,
or I'm going to get shot with a rifle.
Selena, I can assure you, I told the boss that, we want to get those lights off. They're getting looked at, but they're not, they're council lights, they're City of Sydney lights.
As the time inches towards 2 a.m., Manas is still attempting to have his demands reach media through social media platforms such as YouTube and Facebook. Just before 2 a.m., he hears a strange sound coming from the back of the store. Throughout the entire siege, Manas is paranoid about any slight sound, since they could signify a police raid. Sounds from the ice machines and kitchen machinery motors would set him off, but this sound, he believes, originated from the emergency fire exit. Manas investigates the sound. He brings Fiona Ma and Selena Winpei to accompany him. They walk together to the back of the cafe and stop near the Phillip Street side fire exit. Manas instructs Fiona Ma to block the fire exit with boxes that were lying around in the storage room. This part of the hostage crisis is a turning point, since this is the first time Manas leaves the main cafe floor unattended. This becomes the perfect opportunity for an escape. Jared realizes this and runs towards the lobby cafe entrance, while other hostages follow his lead. As they run, a glass is knocked off a table, which alerts Manas to return to the main cafe floor, where he witnesses several hostages escaping, and without any hesitation, he fires his shotgun towards the escaping hostages. The shot is angled high and misses. He shatters the glass above the door. Hostages, fearing for their life, continue to run and escape through the building's sliding doors. The 6 hostages make their way down Martin Place and reach the safety of police. Manas now only has control of 7 of the original 18. During negotiation, he would bargain the release of hostages in exchange for his demands, but instead of releasing his bargaining chips, they escaped. He lost most of his leverage, and now he needs to prove that he's still in control. He orders Tory Johnson to kneel. Manas would then fire his gun away from Tory Johnson. It seemed like a warning shot. As the second shot is fired, Fiona Ma thinks the gunman is reloading for a third shot, so she believes that this is the perfect opportunity to escape. She runs towards the cafe's main entrance. She runs out of the cafe and angles herself to authorities after spotting them. A minute later, Manas aims a shotgun towards Tory Johnson's head and back. He fires his gun. The command post hears the chilling message and relays commit the EA. EA standing for emergency action. EA starts at 2:14 a.m. TOU officers strike from both entrances. They move into better positioning to take out Manas. And they throw multiple flashbangs to distract Manas. There are 2 entry teams. The main entrance officers are Entry Team A, which consisted of a shield carrier, and 2 assault officers. Entry Team B are the multiple officers in the lobby. Manas is positioned away from Entry Team B, but open to shots from Entry Team A. The 2 assault officers push forward and fire, taking on Manas in a hail of bullets. Manas is now dead on the floor, and TOU officers are now checking for survivors. They find a hostage in a prone position with visible blood around her. She's in critical condition from the bullet shrapnel that came from an officer's gun. Others also sustained injuries from gunshots. They were all taken to paramedics. Katrina Dawson's injuries were severe and she passes away in the ER. A bomb squad is dispatched to face the threat of Manas' backpack. It would be determined that the proclaimed bomb would be an audio speaker. The siege lasted around 16 hours, and now that the dust has settled, there became more emphasis on the victims and how the siege could have been executed better. The two casualties of the Lindt Cafe siege are Tory Johnson and Katrina Dawson. In central Sydney, they allowed the public to pay their respects. An inquest is formed to study the situation and learn from the mistakes. One of the concerns became why none of the multiple snipers stationed took a shot once throughout the whole hostage crisis. One of the snipers stated that he had an angle on Manas' head through White Window 4 for around 10 minutes when Manas was resting. It would be found out that Manas' backpack claim would become his biggest asset. Many of the decision-making and plan of attack had to play around the possible bomb explosion. Snipers did not shoot out of concern for the backpack. Another fatal flaw comes with the TOU entry. The plan was to have both teams enter the cafe simultaneously, but during the execution, Entry Team B is late, leaving only Entry Team A to deal with Manas. The Entry Team B execution is botched by a variety of factors. First is the multiple flashbangs that were thrown at a closed glass door and not inside the cafe. This becomes detrimental to the senses of TOU officers and not Manas. This slowed down the team, but also the sheer amount of officers slowed down the entry. Entry Team A consisted of 3 officers, while Entry Team B consisted of 6+. A compact team would have been a better option to shorten the entry time and stay synchronous with Team A. Negotiators were also fixated on not giving in to any of Manas' demands, even if they meant the release of some of the hostages. The decision making of siege commanders seemed faulty, and surprisingly, a TOU entry was only to be done if a hostage had been killed or seriously injured. Commanders had no intention of issuing action, even through all of Manas' threats. The siege commanders were set on a peaceful outcome that seemed impossible since none of the demands were given. A psychiatrist brought in during the siege also swayed the opinions of commanders, as he made it clear that Manas is not, quote, a violent person, and is most likely bluffing when making threats. Furthermore, this whole hostage crisis could have been avoided if courts did not give Manas the possibility of bail twice.